Welcome to the Emotional Eating Unwrapped podcast. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, an emotional eating and weight loss coach for women looking to fall in love with eating, create healthy attachments with food, and lose weight sustainably. Hello, and welcome to another new episode of Emotional Eating Unwrapped. I'm your host, Alana Kessler, and today we're going to talk about something that I know a lot of women feel, but very few women have ever really felt the internal permission to name. And we're going to be talking today about anger. We're going to be talking today about rage. And those words are similar, but they're not exactly the same, because rage is the kind of anger that happens when you don't feel your internal permission to feel the heat of being angry. And there's nuance to it, because rage is explosive and anger is hot. And that's what I want you to discern, right? Rage is something that feels completely out of control, whereas anger is just very a lot of charge. And so for so many women that have been conditioned to be the peacekeepers, people pleasers, caregivers, anger doesn't come out in the place that it belongs. And so eventually, when we suppress our permission to feel anger because of our belief systems around what anger means, or what the consequences of being angry is going to do to our lives, right? Which, is also one of the things that women do. We think ahead about how our feelings and emotions are going to affect other people, rather than being honest with ourselves and how we feel, and feeling worthy to share the truth of our experience, right? Whether or not that comes from the fear, comes from what other people are going to think, or potentially that we ourselves don't have the skills of being able to express an emotion that is hot, right? Or that potentially can cause some sort of, conflict, or that isn't a peacekeeping emotion, right? And we're not sure how to exist interdependently with other people while having that emotion. So because of those situations, right? Women are often people pleasers, peacekeepers, the nice ones, and suppress their authentic anger. And unfortunately, what happens is that because it's not coming out in a healthy way, it comes out on the plate, right? It shows up in, anger then becomes rage because it's continuing to be pressure cooked. And it shows up in our behaviors towards ourselves with food in explosive, compulsive ways, like late night binges, right? Punishing exercise routines, micromanaging your food, and kind of what happens with anger, if that initially that first experience with anger, everything kind of goes away, and all you could think about is that thing that you're angry about. And that's just the nature of anger. What happens is when we don't release that anger in a healthy way, it becomes rage, and it becomes even more narrow, right? All you could focus on is that. And that's also what happens with your eating, right? When the anger gets displaced into your relationship with food, micromanaging your food becomes like very, very a big focal point, because it feels like the only thing in your life that you can control. So in this episode, we're not going to talk about emotional eating as it relates to anxiety or sadness. Sometimes we talk about, those emotions, which are definitely root causes of emotional eating. But today we're going to talk about anger eating, and how food becomes the pressure release valve for all the emotions, all the hot, charged emotions that we've been taught that whether it's been conscious or unconsciously taught, that we've been taught not to feel. Okay, so let's just name the obvious. Most of us, especially as women, we were never taught how to feel, let alone express anger, right? We're taught to be nice, to keep the peace, to smooth things over, to take the high road, to put others' feelings before ours, to worry about what our full breadth of life experience is going to do to the other people in our lives, right? And if we got mad, and if we actually did, right? So if we actually did get mad, we actually did have a charged emotion that came out, we were told we're dramatic, right? We're oversensitive, we're emotional, we're overreacting, right? So we swallowed it, because who wants to get told that, right? Who wants to feel insulted, right? Though, to be honest, I think that being sensitive is a superpower, and I always took that as, I take that now as a compliment, but it's the tone, right? Like, it's the tone that somebody says it. And we don't want to get that tone from other people, especially people in our lives that we love, that we care about. So we swallow it. We learn to internalize it, right? To smile through gritted teeth, to say it's fine, right? It's like we get that initial intuition that comes up of like, oh, I'm angry about this. And then we have an emotional, maybe it's even like maybe it's not verbal reaction, but it's like a body language reaction, and somebody senses it and says, are you okay? And we just say, yeah, well, I'm fine. Right. While our bodies are like, it's absolutely not. Right. And what happens is that anger, then the more it's suppressed, becomes rage. And that rage doesn't have a safe place to land. So it finds a back door. And for many of us, that door is food. So we overeat, not because of the food itself, but we overeat to comfort ourselves, to numb, and to silence the part of us that actually wants to just let that anger and let that now rage come out, right? We restrict and control food because it's the one place where we could focus our attention now, right? Where we feel like we're going to be productive, and it can sort of like slowly come out, and we can feel powerful and contained, right? It gives us something to do while also feeling like contained and safe in some sort of way, even though that we're not safe at all, because we're continuing to basically hurt ourselves. But just like a pressure cooker that never lets off steam, eventually you explode, right? Eventually you explode. And the behaviors with food and eating is where you explode, right? So if you're somebody who maybe you're somebody who doesn't even like get to the point where you're micromanaging your food on your plate or calories or anything like that, you kind of just go straight to the food, right? So there's two different types of people. There's people that will go straight to the binging and overeating because they're just soothing and numbing the emotion right away. Like they can't even deal with that intense, hot feeling of anger. And then there's some people that will live within that anger. It'll become more of a pressure cooker. They'll hyper focus on their food because it gives them a sense of control. And then eventually that pressure cooker explodes and you binge or you overeat. I remember what it felt like to be stuck in the cycle of emotional eating. I tried every diet out there, counting, tracking, restricting, but nothing ever worked. Food controlled my life, my thoughts, and I constantly felt guilty after eating. But once I learned how to heal the emotional triggers behind my eating and trust my body, everything changed. I stopped obsessing over food, the weight started coming off naturally, and I found real freedom in how I ate and lived. So I created the Sober Eating year-long mentorship to help other women experience the same transformation. So you can stop battling with food, you can lose weight without deprivation, and you can feel confident in your body again. In this mentorship, you'll have access to my proven nervous system rewiring method. You'll have access to live coaching with me, weekly accountability, and a community of women who truly understand your journey. You'll also have free access to my signature programs, the Emotional Eating Solution and Decoding Permanent Weight Loss, valued at $2,000. Click the link in the show notes to explore the mentorship today. You don't have to do this alone. I'll be right there with you every step of the way. Right? But here's what I really want you to hear, right? Anger demands an outlet, right? So if it can't come out in a conversation or a boundary, right, or some sort of like hitting a piñata or like screaming into your pillow, it'll always find a way to express itself. And there's many different ways that happens. It's not just a full-on binge, right? Which is why it's so important to look at your behaviors with food and really see if there's something going on underneath, because eating past fullness, right? Like eating, and sometimes we eat past fullness and it's like, it's not a big deal, but eating to the point of eating past fullness when you know that you're going to create pain, or when you told yourself you wouldn't do it because you're aligning with a higher, a higher goal that you're trying to reach, whether that's weight loss or something, but you continuously kind of sabotage yourself, right? Like restricting your food so tightly that it feels like your only form of control because everything else feels really chaotic, right? So food ends up becoming the rebellion, becomes the silent protest, right? And not just the food you're choosing, but the dynamic that you're having with your eating, right? So it's really important to observe your dynamic with eating, right? Are you trying to negotiate with yourself with eating? Are you trying to set yourself up to fail, right? Like, see what you're doing, right? Because sometimes our food choices and our relationship with the dynamics of eating is the only place that you finally get to say, I get to decide, I get to have something, I get to fully express, right? It's not a logical thing, it's a primal thing. But it makes a lot of sense when you can reflect back through the lens of emotion, and when you can look at your behaviors with food and eating and look at it as a way to see what's underneath. So how do we stop using food as the translator for our anger, right? And the first thing we have to do is we have to name it, right? You have to be willing to say, this isn't about the food, this is about something bigger. You have to be able to be with and be able to slow down enough to feel the sensations of what anger is. Right? And if you're curious about the physical signals of anger, you want to you're going to first probably feel it in your head or your chest. Right? And then see like what else is going on. So a body scan is really nice to do. Right? And I have a bunch of different body scan, nervous system rewiring trainings that I offer in the mentorship. And it's really important when you get that first hit of anger, which is usually like a hot piece of flash that comes in through your body. And then you want to be like, do you feel it in your throat? Do you feel it in your fists, your jaw, your chest? And then once you locate it, ask yourself, what is the story underneath this feeling? What am I really craving to feel, to say, to express? Right? Because this isn't about the food, right? This is about needing a place for your anger, for your rage to land. So next time that you feel the urge to overeat, and I'm not saying that it's always going to be anger, but when you feel that heart beating really fast and that hot energy come up through your body, pause and ask yourself, is this coming from hunger? Is this coming from a part of me that feels unseen, disrespected, walked all over, pissed off, right? You want to kind of be willing to name the emotion, the sensation that's coming up, right? And then be willing to sit with the anger for a bit, and then practice giving your anger somewhere else to go before you immediately jump into the food. Okay, so this might look like, screaming into a pillow, punching a couch cushion, taking a fast, aggressive walk, shaking your body, right? Ultimately, it needs to be something where there's fast acting movements, right? Or where there's like an intense energy release, right? So shaking is really good. I like taking fast, aggressive walks because you get the benefit of fresh air, hopefully, and also moving your body and getting the energy moving. Anger and rage need to move through the body, right? And that's essentially what food is, what we think food is doing, right? Or what we're using food to do, right? We're using the act of eating and chewing and like swallowing and getting more and eating more as being the fast moving thing to get the energy moving. But if you see what's happening is you're just bringing more, you're moving quickly, but your more energy is going in your body and kind of continuing to suppress it down. Whereas instead you need to get the energy out. Okay. So here's the thing, like when it comes to emotional overeating and binging and thinking about it from a food place, food is not the enemy, right? The food that you're choosing to emotionally overeat or binge or, micromanage or control, that's not the enemy. It's been your translator. So when you see it as that, it's really interesting because then you could try to learn its language. And once we learn the language of our eating behaviors and food, that's when we really heal. Right? Because right now it's been the way that your body has been, and even your nervous system has been trying to get your attention when you haven't felt comfortable expressing through words. Right? And that is a skill also to be learned. And that is something that I teach as well. Right? That is something that you have to learn. You have to learn how to communicate. Because if you think about what is communicating, it's taking energy and it's putting it out and it's taking it out of your body. And what you want to do is learn how to communicate in a way that is that whereas you're taking something out of your body and giving it, and through that you're feeling more seen, you're feeling more nourished because you're getting it back. But at the moment, because maybe you don't feel comfortable to communicate, right? We're using food to kind of get that soothing. But really what we want to do is be able to release our emotional experience out, right? Have it be heard, and then have it be reflected back to us in a way that makes us feel nourished. So that food doesn't have to be involved, right? So if you've been beating yourself up for emotional eating, if you've been wondering potentially why no amount of mindfulness or clean eating or willpower or fixing it has worked, I want you to ask yourself, have I been holding on to rage? Right? Where am I still trying to be the good girl? Where am I still trying to avoid confrontation because I'm afraid it's going to be conflict? Right? Where am I people pleasing when my body is screaming to finally say that this is enough? I don't want to do this anymore. Because your anger is not wrong, right? It's revealing. It's showing you where your needs, your boundaries, where your truth has been ignored, right? Where your truth has been suppressed for too long. Right? You don't have to make yourself silent and small to keep the peace. You don't have to binge or, eat and overeat or like binge or like, eat food in secret to feel powerful for the moment, right? You don't have to do that. You get to feel the full breadth of your emotions, your anger fully. You're allowed to do that. It's really important that you learn how to hold capacity for that, because when you do, food gets to go back to being food, like I said, not your outlet, not your battleground, not a place where you can, rebel and act out, acting maybe isn't the right word, but like allow yourself to express things, right? Because you deserve to express yourself interdependently in the world to real people so that you can feel heard, feel seen, feel truly nurtured and nourished. And it doesn't have to come from your relationship with eating and food, right? It can come from humans. It can come from connection with others. Okay. So I hope this episode was illuminating for you, was helpful for you, because, really becoming comfortable with feeling angry and that hot charge of this emotion, and recognizing that it's not a shameful thing to feel anger, and that there is a healthy way to feel anger and utilize it to actually build connection in the world and get that feeling of feeling seen, feeling understood, feeling nurtured and nourished. It's super important because, we get angry all the time, and that's okay. All right. So if you are enjoying the episode, please give us a like on YouTube. Please follow us on Spotify and on Apple. We are on both of those platforms. And if you are interested in leaving us a comment on Spotify, we would love that. We love hearing your takes on the episode. And until next time, I'm Alana, and thank you for listening to Emotional Eating Unwrapped.